Brexit Party?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you for joining me today.
And if I could correct Jimmy Ogunusi.
Jimmy Ogunusi.
Yes.
Okay then, thank you for joining me, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're standing as a candidate
in London,
I meant
yes.
to say,
yes.
for the Brexit Party.
Absolutely, yes.
Why the Brexit Party?
Why the Brexit Party? Very simply put, if you think back to roughly 3 years ago, we had a referendum. The then Prime Minister, David Cameron, promised that no matter what happens, they will honour the actual vote of the referendum. He resigned, okay, which was unexpected, and then Theresa May came into office, and then they actually, Article 50 was actually obviously took place, and then roughly 498 MPs agreed for Article 50 to actually be instigated, which meant that whether we have a deal or no deal, we would leave on the 29th of March this year. Okay?
Did I say May?
Yeah.
Yeah, March, I mean to say.
29th of March.
March, May.
So, as far as I was concerned, we took the vote, we're going to leave on that date, or we have a good deal. Yeah? That date came, and there was no deal. And then it was extended to April. Further extension, we're now waiting until the 29th. So the 31st of October this year, so an extension.
Yes.
And within Parliament, there have been all sorts of what I'll call games, as I'll call it, okay, to try and actually thwart that referendum. Yeah, given different reasons why we should not leave.
No, but what do you really think is the position of the Prime Minister? Do you think she really wants the UK to leave the EU?
It's very hard because I'm not in her mind. She's a Remainer in terms she voted to actually remain.
I know.
Yeah, but what she believes is very hard to tell. But again, when she came into office, she promised to actually honour that referendum.
But why do you support Brexit?
Why Brexit? Going back to what I was saying. At that point, I wasn't interested. Obviously, Brexit. Why do I support it?
Yes.
Well, Brexit. I believe that the UK, okay, should have control of its own borders, okay, its fishing waters, be able to actually have its own control of its own, obviously, its borders, independence, because Europe or the EU is going down what I'll class as a political union. Okay, and I believe in the actual integrity and in the actual sovereignty of the United Kingdom. It's as simple as that. Even before we actually had the right to the referendum, I'd want us to actually leave the EU.
You're talking about so that the UK will be able to have control of our borders.
Of its own borders, yes.
Did she not realize that before signing or before going into that agreement some 30 years ago?
Well, you mean then, but when we went into it back in the 70s, it was just purely the common market. It was just purely a trading bloc. And over the years, slowly, and what I call slowly, but unaware to a lot of people, we got closer and closer within the EU to what we class as a political union. That's where we're going. Now, if you think about it, the EU has its own flag, its own presidents, yeah, its own currency, yeah, and now it wants its own army. What does that mean? It's a country, and recently it was mentioned in the EU Parliament. They're looking to create an empire. It's as simple as that, and we want to retain our own national sovereignty, the UK. That is the main crux of it. Yeah, empires eventually will crumble. Yeah, we want to remain an independent. We can actually trade together. Yeah, we can actually have collaboration, work together, but we do not have to be part of a political union of Europe.
What is the state of Brexit now?
The state is, it's almost in limbo, because we have an extension to the end of October in terms of to actually get this deal agreed, but this so-called deal is actually a treaty. So we're saying we want to leave, and we have to agree to another treaty to actually leave, and then after, we'll then have a discussion about how we're going to actually work together in terms of trade deals. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, the way it's been negotiated, it's any average businessman will tell you the negotiation that's taken place is absolutely woeful. And to add to it, our MPs...
So you think, I'm sorry for cutting you short, but you feel it would actually be of great benefit to the United Kingdom to leave the EU?
Absolutely. Absolutely, in terms of obviously managing our own borders. Give an example now, we're actually on Ben TV, At the moment, there's actually, in terms of immigration, the EU citizens actually have a preference to non-EU citizens. So let's look at the Commonwealth, for instance. Okay? They have to actually abide by certain rules and regs in terms of immigration. It's not a fair system. And what we're saying is, in terms of managing our borders, we should be able to actually manage our own borders and not have open borders. That's what the EU actually has. So we manage our borders, and then we can then decide who comes and who doesn't come. Just like in Australia, a points-based system. Think about it. Nigeria, we actually, or in Nigeria, people actually, we have an agreement. We just have open borders.
But it's really strange, you know, if you say the UK does not have control over...
No, it doesn't. No, it does not have control, because from the EU, in theory or on paper, every EU citizen could end up coming to the UK. I can't see it happening, but they could actually end up coming here because it's open borders. It's as simple as that. Now, back during the Tony Blair days, yeah, when he was actually in power, they estimated that roughly probably 30,000, 40,000 will come in from the EU. Mm-hmm. 10 times that came into the UK. Yeah? Now, it's not just a question of numbers. If you're going to let 300,000 plus come into the UK, you need to actually make sure you have the infrastructure, the resources, yeah, to manage that. It's not surprising when you go to doctors, to hospitals, to schools. We have a huge influx. Okay. Now, so it's not about the numbers, it's about having the resources, you know, to actually manage that. Now, our so-called leaders did not do that. They did not actually put those things in place. So slowly, we've had a moshment in terms of the actual population.
Okay, you have a caller. Hello, I have Catherine from London. Thanks for joining us. Catherine, let's have your contribution.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. The relationship between the European Union and UK, I think, is a give and take relationship. So they are both gaining from this relationship. The main reason I'm calling is to actually speak to Mr. Jimmy. I mean, in my opinion, I'm not sure why a Nigerian man should be supporting Brexit when I'm a Nigerian, by the way, when most of us, we are immigrants. We relocated to this country. So supporting Brexit, I really don't get the logic. So if you came here, sir, or your parents came here, why do you have problem with UK, in quotes, controlling the borders? European Union or EU, they have more rights than we or the Commonwealth countries. So, I mean, I personally, I have a problem with that. I mean, you shouldn't be part of this sort of Brexit party. I mean, but again, that's my opinion. So we're all free to express ourselves, I suppose.
Much, Catherine. You know, this was our argument before we got on set.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I need you to respond to that.
Well, I'm going to respond, but I'm going to throw a question back. I hope she's still on. Catherine?
Catherine, are you still there? I don't know, she will get it. She
okay. My question is, why does she have an issue with that? Because she's saying, coming in, let's say an immigrant, let's say, for instance, from outside the EU comes in, they have certain controls. But from the EU, there aren't controls. I don't understand what the issue is, what her issue is. You know, there should be a fair system.
You see, that is why I would love to have someone like Nigel Farage, who is the face of Brexit, sitting up beside me here. Let us talk about this. Because a lot of people from our communities have a perception about Brexit that needs to be clarified.
But let me just say something. The mere use of the word immigration, people assume it's actually being racist. It's not. What we're saying is, we should actually basically be able to actually control our own borders and have a fair immigration policy. In other words, okay, and we manage the numbers, okay, coming in and the type of people that we want to come in.
When we talk about the over 300,000 that came in, is it mostly, the estimate, of course, is it from the European Union or maybe from every other part, from the Commonwealth nations? No,
this is from the EU in terms of numbers coming through. It was a lot higher than obviously what was estimated.
Okay. Yeah. But why do people think the Brexiters are racist?
Well, it's very hard because, again, as I said, the use of the word immigration assumes that you're actually racist. In the party, we have a whole cross-section of people in the party. You know, again, whether you're actually sort of, you know, we have a gentleman who's one of the lead candidates in London. He's actually partly from Pakistan. You know, people assume that, again, it's actually racist. We're not racist. The word immigration doesn't mean that you're actually being racist. We're saying we have a fair immigration system. We can manage our borders to make sure those coming in, all right, okay, we can actually manage it, just like in Australia or other places, even in Nigeria, for instance. Okay, we manage the actual borders. There's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of the actual EU, an open door policy means that anybody can come in. That also then, in a way, in terms of those, let's say come from the Commonwealth,
yes,
don't get a fair shot, because then, if we have so many people coming in from the EU, that means you have to limit the number of people coming in from, let's say, the other countries like India, you know, Ghana, Nigeria. It's not a fair system.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you this question. So how can the Brexit Party, if you happen to become a member of the European Parliament, how can you help us get out of this entire situation?
Well, the idea of the Brexit Party is, with the forthcoming elections, is to actually vote in as many MEPs as possible, yeah, to actually go to Europe. Not only that, we want to be part of the actual withdrawal negotiation to make sure we do actually exit the actual, what do you call it, the actual EU. Thereafter, all right, remember, the reason why we've not left is because our MPs, the majority of them in Parliament, are Remainers. They don't want us to leave. And some of them actually want us to have a second referendum. The actual vote itself, we took, the referendum has to stand. It's about democracy.
Do you support a second referendum?
No, I do not. No, I do not. Because if you actually, two things I can think of. If you have a second referendum, all right, and we actually vote to actually remain, those who voted for Brexit say, hang on a minute, what about our referendum? It doesn't count. And then, based on what's happened in Parliament, let's assume that the Leavers, as in Brexit, actually win again. And I think probably there'll be even a higher majority. If they've not honoured the first vote, what makes you think they're going to honour the second vote, the second referendum?
No, because with the commotion in the last few months that we've seen on television, that we've seen in the Parliament, it is practically telling on the Prime Minister. It's like she's having sleepless nights.
She might be most Prime Ministers actually have sleepless nights because it's part of their job. But what I'm saying to you is the way she's actually negotiated our exit from the EU is actually questionable. You know, if Brexiteers would have taken a complete different approach, yeah, I'll give an example. If you're based in Scotland, for instance, you advertise a car, yeah? I look at your car online, I go, I drive to Scotland, I tell you, by the way, Rose, I've come all the way from London, you're in Scotland, I want to buy your car. And by the way, before I leave, no matter what, I want that car. You're thinking, okay, this guy is very interested in my car. I then say to you, Rose, can you give me a discount? Can you reduce the price? What are you going to say to me? You're going to think, hang on a minute, this guy wants my car, my negotiation skills, I'm not going to budge. That's what's happened. The MPs in Parliament...
she's giving away easily?
Very easy. The way she's negotiated has been just pitiful. I'll be quite frank. I've got due respect for her in terms of being our PM, but the way they've negotiated has been pitiful. And our MPs have taken off the table this no deal. Once you take that off the table, you're saying to them, guess what? That no matter what happens, right, we're not going to walk away. When you're negotiating, you need to actually be prepared to walk away. Okay. Otherwise, the other party will see your weak spot. From more or less within days of the actual referendum result, the Remainers have been filing off to Europe, you know, saying, how can we actually basically stop this? How can we stop this? The EU, with due credit to them, I've been thinking, we've got these guys because they're not united, okay, all right, and they're not going to walk away. They want to stay. The EU want us to stay for a number of reasons. Because
they are gaining more. Is that what you're saying?
Now, what I'm saying to you is they don't want us to leave. They want us because we pay a lot of money into the EU, all right? We're a big player in the EU. They don't want to leave. So what can we do, all right, to make sure they don't leave?
What would be the benefits for leaving?
The benefit?
Yes.
What, for the UK?
For the UK, like the international trade and immigration benefits for the UK.
Right, as I said, in international trade, as it stands, okay, we cannot sign deals outside, into trade deals outside the EU. So, for instance, trading with the Commonwealth, we can't have trade deals. We have to go by the EU, obviously what the EU says. In terms
so
of
we'll be able to make independent decisions.
independent decisions, yeah, we have that.
But how would this affect a lot of people from West Africa or even Africa? What would be the benefit to them?
Well, the benefit is not just international trade, but international development. If we, from the 70s, back in the 70s, we've actually moved away from being closer to, let's say, for instance, the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've been focused on the EU. There are lots of markets out there that want to do business with us. Yeah, but because we're actually telling to the EU, we can't do that. Immigration, there needs to be a fair system. We have to manage our borders. We have to. Otherwise, you can't have free for all.
Okay.
And that means those from for instance, from the Commonwealth, like Ghana, Nigeria, India, will have a fair crack in terms of entering. Let's say I have a skill in IT, right? And because of the quota system, for instance, you have a skill set, right? Yes, we'll take you. And the Indian or the Nigerian is competing with a Romanian or a Polish person on the same level. That's fair. As opposed to, sorry, because you're from Poland, you have a preference. You can jump the queue. That's what we're saying. So, and it's things like our fishing waters, having that control there. You know, our courts, making decisions in our courts. Yeah? We slowly are actually becoming part of a political union.
Okay, so this is actually the other way around, because a lot of people from the African community think that leaving the EU will be of no benefit to them, but you're saying it's actually going to be...
The absolute opposite. And it's all about optics. The EU do not want us to leave. What can we do to make this as difficult as possible? And most of our MPs, again, are Remainers.
Two questions, hopefully, before we go. Number one, the Brexit Party has been talking about changing politics for good.
Yes.
What do they mean?
What they mean by that is, it's a slogan. What it means is that the two-party system that we have, okay, in other words, the two major parties, Conservatives and Labour Party, right, they've not honoured, yeah, that referendum. Or they're not honouring it. They're saying they are, but they've actually taken away the no deal on the table, and we've not left the EU. What we're saying is we need to actually make a difference, and basically, if they're not going to change their way they're thinking, we change those MPs. It's as simple as that. So, beyond the European elections, the Brexit Party are going to stand for any future elections.
Okay.
Yeah?
Let's talk about the gentleman Nigel Farage, the face of Brexit.
Yeah?
Is moved from the UK?
Yes.
Was his position is also contested, is it?
Sure. Now, Nigel Farage is the leader of the actual of the Brexit Party. Yes. So he's also standing, I think, is in the northeast as a sort of MEP. He's currently an MEP, but again, that tenure will expire after the actual forthcoming election, which will be the 23rd of May. That's the EU elections. So then he's actually standing again, yes.
Okay, so now he moved from the UKIP. Why is that?
Well, he started UKIP, and without Nigel Farage, we would not have left the EU. Yeah? Or we would not actually had that referendum.
I know, because he was a really, really strong campaigner.
Yes, he spent roughly 20 years in the EU, yeah, campaigning for us.
And you think he knows better?
People call him the actual godfather, obviously, of Brexit, because he developed 20-odd years to get us out of the EU. In other words, basically...
How is the Brexit Party doing now?
Well, the party itself has been in existence for roughly 5 weeks, and all the polls out there show that for the EU election coming up, we're actually roughly between about 9 and 10 points ahead of everybody else in the country. Yes.
That's good.
So what that means is, in terms of European elections,
okay,
the Brexit Party will have the highest members of the EU Parliament.
Okay, for my viewers, if you're just joining us, I am speaking with Jimmy Ogunwusi. Ogunwusi.
Yes.
Okay, and he is a member of the Brexit Party and is contesting to be a member of the European Parliament.
Yes.
Okay, and then you guys are going to be the front runner in trying to direct the UK out of the EU.
Out of the EU.
Okay.
I think there are two things there, because we don't know what's going to happen between now and end of October.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah? So we're going to contest the EU election, which we're currently doing, and then beyond that, any future elections, including Peterborough.
Let's do this quickly. What sort of Brexit does the Brexit Party want?
Brexit, basically, as it stands, no deal. We basically leave with no deal, and then we have it, and we go into what we call WTO rules, yeah, World Trade Organization rules. So that gives us roughly 2 years, okay, to actually basically, it's like a transition period, to continue trading with Europe and working together, and within that time, we'll then negotiate a deal whereby a trade, obviously, a working deal, yeah? We could do that, but in Parliament, most of the MPs have rejected that.
There is too much literature on this, too many information out there. It's getting really confusing, you know.
It's getting confusing, but I tell you what, from my perspective, a lot of the MPs is almost like sort of smoke screen. They make it look very, very complicated, yeah. But behind it, the majority of our MPs do not want us to leave the EU. Either they want us to leave or they want a second referendum. That's what the problem is. That's why we've not left, because they want us to stay. They're using other sort of issues to actually try and cloud the issue.
Okay, if this is really going to be of good benefit to the UK, and I think you guys have a lot of work on your hands. You started well. I mean, you got it, and you got the vote. Leave. There's no need for a second referendum.
There shouldn't, and it's not just about that, it's about democracy. When the UK has the oldest parliament, yeah, in the world.
Yes.
If we actually don't actually adhere to that what do you call it, that vote, where does that leave us?
True. Thank you very much. Okay, viewers, I've been speaking with Mr. Jimmy Ogunwusi. He's of the Brexit Party and he is contesting to be a member of the European Parliament. Thank you very much for coming. Hopefully we're going to have you again so we could talk, shine more light on this, have more debates, of course, and looking forward to having Nigel Farage in our studio also. Yes, because we want the clarification, and being the face of Brexit, the godfather of Brexit. Let's hear from him.